Yeah, good to see you, Connie. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday.
Yes. It's been a bit of a week.
It has been quite the week.
Yes.
Yes.
So Connie and I every week have decided that we like to get together and have a chat live about something energy related, something that's because we there's a lot we can do to help ourselves be happier, more efficient, more productive, more fulfilled when we focus on our energy. So that's what we're talking about, things that will be helpful. So prioritizing, Connie, you're the master of this, so you start off.
I am interesting. Yes. Yeah. So I feel prioritizing is a big one. But it starts, of course, before that. Like we can only prioritize when we know where we want to go and what vision we're having, no? And then you actually can prioritize. But without prioritizing, and it's especially difficult, I feel like, in today's world. And you tell me that I'm the master of it, but I have to be really mindful and aware of it too, because we can easily get pulled in all these directions and then we're not prioritizing anymore. And so I feel like it helps when we know where we want to go, if we have clarity, like we often talk about. Yeah, if we have clarity, and then before we do, like, okay, no, I have to back up a little bit. So then when you have clarity, we should actually have some kind of a plan in place for the week, what we want to do, what are the priorities for the week. And then before we get sidetracked or pulled somewhere else, we should always see, does this actually really align with our priorities? That's kind of like the short version of what we want to talk about, at least from my perspective.
Yeah. I think for me also, and I come at this from the perspective of, because I love to talk about the Enneagram and the different personality types, and being the type 2, which is the helper personality, for those people who seems like you're deeply programmed to help other people and put everybody else before yourself. I think it's also important to really look at and think about who you're prioritizing, or should that be whom? I never know. So, are you prioritizing for other people all the time and never prioritizing for yourself? Because what I've learned as the person who did prioritize for everybody else and made myself last, just naturally, what I've learned is how that doesn't work, and you have to turn that around and prioritize for yourself first. And then you can see what's important for you to do, for other people, with other people, and so on. So I think from that perspective, it has to come. And again, like you said, that's where that clarity comes in. You've got to know what's important to you and where you want to go before you can do that.
Yeah. You need the bigger picture or the vision or the goal. You need to have that. And that doesn't negate that you don't help other people. I mean, if you know you're a helper, you can always have time set aside where you can help people. No, I mean, if that's what you want to do and that's a priority for you. But if we want to reach certain goals, and especially like if we're talking about business owners, we have our goals. So if we're always helping everybody else, then we don't get our business forward, which then in turn, we can't help the people that we're helping. No, so it's kind of, so that's where I'm thinking too, is like if you have the big vision and then you can actually ask yourself, how does this fit in my big vision? Is this aligned if I go and help this person now with what I want to do? With the big picture.
That's why I think it's helpful to have someone you can talk to, or have someone you can brainstorm with or bounce ideas off, because sometimes people will say, oh, I'm a big picture thinker, and so they can see the big picture, but they have a harder time with the detail of it. And then there are other people who are so caught up in the detail that they don't have that bigger picture, and so it's very easy for someone like that to get lost in the detail and then just kind of you look up and how did I get here, because you haven't been able to prioritize because you've been so deeply enmeshed in those details.
Yeah.
One other thing I think that comes to mind, because I've worked with a few people who work in a company, and it's kind of funny, especially in these days where, that with restructuring and reorganization of companies, where they let people go, and then the people who are left have to take on more and do more people's jobs, if you like. How it's amazing to me how often people will say, well, I don't know how to prioritize because every person who asks me to do something, their stuff is urgent. Every time they're never given the time and the space to really work on something. It's like, you've got to do this now. And then somebody else, you've got to do this now. This is a priority. And, what do you do when everything that's on your plate that everyone's handing to you is a priority or top priority? I think you have to say to them, okay, well, I've got 10 things that are top priority. One of them has to be the highest priority. So you tell me, you've got to be able to, I think, speak up for yourself and ask for some guidance on that, because it would drive you insane if everybody needs something from you and it's all a top priority in their mind. You've got to be able to distinguish and determine what is most important.
Yeah, and that might be a hard thing if you're an employee and you don't have control over your own work. But then, like you said, you can go and you can actually say, okay, now I have 10 things here. So if I work on this one, then this has to wait. Or if I work on this one, this has to wait. So it's like, it might be the person you report to that has to decide which is actually the right priority. Because we have only one mind and two hands, and we can only do one thing at the same time,
Right.
So.
You're only one person. And I know sometimes people are scared to speak up because they think, I should be able to handle all this. I should be able to do all this. But it really isn't realistic in that kind of situation. Something has to give. You can't be doing all the things at the same time. So it's important for you to receive some guidance if you're in that kind of situation, so that you can prioritize, because it's impossible otherwise if everyone's telling you everything's top priority.
Yeah, totally. But I feel too, it's like, you can also go, like we talked about, I think 2 weeks ago, we talked about time management. So oftentimes it's like putting out fires is oftentimes when everything is urgent, like because you have maybe not prioritized or use the right time management tools in the beginning. I can't speak today. And then all of a sudden everything becomes a huge priority. So so there is two aspects to this. It's your own, how do you manage yourself, how do you do your time management, your priorities, and how is the environment, especially if you're an employee, how is the environment doing it? It has two parts to it. And so then always figuring out, okay, what was my part in it, and what maybe can I do better in the future with, so that it's never becoming urgent when everybody just dumps everything on you.
Right.
So they all kind of flow together. So I often feel like prioritizing, you can't just have this as a standalone. It's always a part of a bigger picture.
It is. And it's sometimes it's hard for people because they do see everything as a priority, even if it's not somebody else giving them things to do. And it can be hard because there can be so many things that you want to do and you want to make a priority. I used to be, so in this society, I think, being able to multitask, it's almost like a badge of honor, I'm a good multitasker. And I think they even put that in job descriptions, right? Must be a good multitasker. And I used to be quite proud of the fact that I was good at multitasking. I had to have all these things in my head and I, just kept it all in here and I could do all these things. But I've since learned to not do that, how to not do that, and to focus on one thing at a time. And the most amazing thing, because I never expected this, is how much more I get done when I do that. And and the even better thing is that what I put into it is so it comes out so much higher quality because I'm putting more into it rather than being scattered in several different directions. I can focus on the one thing, get that done. So that's something that I learned, and it didn't come easily to me, but just being able to look at a big to-do list, for example, and say, okay, what's the one thing I really want to get done today? What's my highest priority? What does it feels like the most important thing for me to do? And if I get that done today, then I'll feel good about what I've accomplished. And when I take that approach, not only do I usually get that one thing done, but I end up getting so much more done. Whereas if I'd said, okay, what are the top 5 things I want to do today? I might not get them done. I might not even finish one. But so that was a big shift for me, and it's been incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I want to say to that, so they, like you said, they were putting that multitasking on a pedestal in a few years back, and by now they actually have that debunked. That is actually another thing that we can do, and also it's like there is I'm wondering whether the correct term is task switching, but it's something like that. So task switching, when you're doing several things, like multitasking several things at the same time, there is this space where your brain has to realign and refocus onto the other thing. And that's where you lose a lot of time. So they have all these studies where they can prove that if you actually focus on one thing first, and then you do the next, and then you do the next, instead of trying to multitask, that these things take less long and you get more done in a day than the other way around. They can actually prove this now. And I think it's called context switching or task switching or something.
Oh, that's good.
Where you actually, and it's very, very interesting because they're saying that our brain needs this time to realign. So if you're like, for example, if you're working on something and the phone rings and you have to do something, your brain has to do something completely different from whatever you were doing now. You have to focus on talking with somebody. So that is the time in between you're losing. They could quantify that. I think it's the more tasks you're trying to do at the same time, the more context or time task switching time you're losing. And they have all kinds of, it's really interesting, they have all kinds of scientific proof now that we can't do this. And then on top of it, like we always said, oh, we're not a machine, we can't do this. Well, they actually, not even a computer can multitask. Even the computer does everything one after the other, just much faster than we can do it. But that's how it appears that the computer multitasks, but not even a computer can multitask. So
that's interesting. Well, and that's a good point to make. And so what do you call that? So task switching?
Task switching or context switching or something like that. I can look it up.
Well, I was just thinking, if there's somebody listening to this or watching this and thinking, well, that's all very well, but my boss, I've tried talking to my boss and they just don't listen. They just want me to get everything done. They won't help me prioritize things. Well, then maybe you look that up and you find that research and you hand it to them and you say, look, I will. It's much more likely that I'd be able to get all these things done and I'd be more productive. And here's the research that shows it. And just if you have someone who's not really believing it, or just a thought. I might look that up actually, because I think it's good that there is research on that, because
I might find it. I probably have it saved somewhere because I'm a geek that way. So I'm like always interested in these things. And so yeah, I might find that. This is actually very interesting because it kind of debunks this myth that we're actually more productive when we're multitasking, and it's not true. And then oftentimes, like you and I were a woman too, oftentimes we were even wearing as a badge of honor, because for a while it was said like women can multitask but man can't, and it's like, no, well, there is a caveat to this. You can multitask if it's not the same level. Like, for example, you can walk and you can listen to radio or to a podcast. That is also multitasking, but this is multitasking. The body is walking and the brain is listening. So that works as multitasking. But you can't listen to a podcast and talk with your friend and being on the phone at the same time. Like, that doesn't work because this is all involving the brain.
I guess it depends on how much brain input is required, and
Yeah.
it's exactly why you can't text and drive, and things like that.
Exactly, but
Although
you can
people think
listen
they
to the
can,
radio. Yeah, but you
right?
can listen to the radio and drive.
Right.
That works, but
Yeah,
you
because
can't.
that's just kind of there. You don't have to really do anything with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really interesting thing. But I think prioritizing is really important, because otherwise, it, like you said in the very beginning, it's so easy to get pulled in so many different directions, and to really become burned out, just completely exhausted. And so I think it's something to really pay attention to, and just ask yourself, what is a priority for me in my life, first of all?
Yeah.
And am I putting enough energy into that? Because so often people will say, oh yes, this is my priority, my family is my priority, or being healthy is my priority, and yet they work so many hours that they don't have time with their family, or they're so busy taking care of everyone else they don't take care of their own health. So if you're saying something is a priority to you, are you actually putting the time and energy into that? That's important to ask yourself as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like we're always talking about energy and all that. So another aspect of prioritizing for me is that if I know I have to do something very demanding, that I actually pay attention to prioritize in the right time, that I know for me that I'm good, that my energy is good. So I can work in the morning, but if you let me, I'd rather take it slow in the morning, and I'm much better equipped to do the hard thinking in the afternoon or even in the evening. So knowing this is for me also prioritizing, doing the important work that I want to prioritize in the time when I'm actually at my best from my energy standpoint, instead of wearing myself out. And I know it's not always possible. So that even as a self-employed, it's not always possible that we can direct it, but as much as we can have control over these things, I feel that is important too.
Oh, very important. Well, as you know, for me, it's the most important thing, paying attention to your energy and energy flow. And that's why self-awareness, it all comes down to self-awareness, and that's how you gain the clarity, and that's how you know what's important to you and where you want to go. And part of that is knowing, really understanding your energy. When is your energy at its best for certain things? When is it at its lowest? And I remember for a whole year, my husband's a morning person. I am not. I'm more awake in the evening. But for a whole year, I got up with him at 5 a.m. and we worked out together. We did this workout program thing. To this day, I don't know how I did it. It was awful. I hated every single minute of it. But I was at war with my body then. So I was doing it, again, talk about the energy behind what you're doing. It was because I was doing battle with my body and I wanted to lose weight. And of course, it didn't lose weight at all. I didn't lose a pound. So I spent a whole year being completely miserable doing that. And I would never put myself through anything like that again. I know for me, the best time for me to exercise or work out is sort of now, late afternoon, early evening time. That's a really good time for me. But over and over again, you'll hear people say, oh, best time to work out is first thing in the morning. Yes, for many people it is, but not for everybody. And you have to know your energy flows and when is a good time for you to do certain things. That's a really good point.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they debunk that eventually too. Right now, it's a big one. There's a few gurus out there who even get up at 4 and 3:30 and whatever crazy. And they basically say, if you want to be successful in life, you have to get up early in the morning.
Oh, I
But
know.
I literally feel like that is maybe true for if that's how your body works. Mine doesn't really work that way. And again, I can, like if it's needed, I can get up early and I can function. But it's not what I would do if you give me the choice. So like, again, figuring out.
Yeah, people are often trying, in the past have tried to get me to be at meetings like at 7 a.m. or something like that. And I have done it. And what I know is that when I do force myself to do that, it throws off my whole day. My energy is off for the whole day. And so now, mostly people know, just don't even ask me. But if they do, and I don't care how great the meeting is, I don't care how good an opportunity it is, I'm not going to be there at that time. Because, well, and also, I would not be at my best. So I don't see the point, really. Yes, I can be there, I can show up, but my energy will not really be fully there.
Exactly.
So when you know that, then you have to honor it as well, and not try to say, well, everybody else does this, or submit to the pressure that other people are putting on you to say this is what you should be doing, or you should be doing it this way. No,
you have to prioritize yourself.
Yes.
In that moment, talking about prioritizing, you have to prioritize yourself. And by prioritizing yourself and actually doing the things when your energy is the best, you're actually serving and helping whoever you're helping also the best, because it's actually, that's when you're doing good. I have the same thing. I can be on a meeting at 7, but then when the meeting is over and I get back into the office, the rest of the day is useless, because I'm so thrown off. Because I'm literally more productive later in the day. But if I have to get up so early, then everything is off. And so the rest of the day is basically just to do mundane, useless stuff and not really anymore what I want to really do. And I wanted to say something else before I forget. So you mentioned earlier that oftentimes it's so much better just to one thing, or identify one thing on your list, what you want to do. There is that book that is called The One Thing, and it's really, I really suggest or highly recommend reading it. It's exactly that. You have this one thing, and it's like when you have that done, then you're usually you get way more done later, but because you get this one thing done, it's kind of like it gives you momentum to do more. And you have to think about, then I feel like if you're looking really at your list, and not everything is just a priority on your long list, but you have to pick one, you're actually way more intentional, and you're thinking way more whether this is now in alignment with where I want to go. What is the one thing to do, And
well, it's interesting because I have this conversation sometimes with people, and sometimes people are very, very resistant to this idea, because, and I know it's kind of counterintuitive, because you think, oh, I've got all these things to do, I can't just focus on one thing, I've got to get them all done, and so I can understand that thinking, because I did used to think like that. But if you really, I would encourage people, if you feel that way, just give it a try. Just try it for a couple of days or a week, because I was shocked at how much more I accomplished and how much easier everything was. And it's because I wasn't so scattered. I wasn't fighting myself, just being able to put all my energy and focus into the one thing I'm doing at this moment, and then the next thing. It really blew me away. It was very surprising to me just how much more effective I was and how much easier everything was. So I would encourage people to try it if you're doubting it at all.
Yeah, no, there is also that context switching coming in again, where they actually can prove how much energy you lose. That's why that you feel scattered. Then you use, on top of it, you use all this energy for this context switching or task switching. So then you have way less energy left for all the things that you want to do. And the other thing is also, what often comes to my mind is when, like, that saying, and I don't know who said it, so I can't give the proper acknowledgement, but if everything is important, nothing is important. No, I mean,
that's true. I like that.
If, and this is not just with our to-do lists or whatever, it's just in any area of your life. If everything is important, then nothing. So this is not how life works. So and so, yeah, I totally suggest that reading that book. It's not a very thick book. It's very eye-opening. The One Thing, it's very good. Or just try out, just pick one thing and pick one that is in alignment with where you want to go, and do that, and then the next thing, and then the next.
Well, and it makes so much sense, because it helps you to be fully present with what you're doing and where you are. And when you're trying to do more than one thing, you can't be fully present. Your mind is here and there, and you know, maybe worried about all the things you have to do and all that kind of thing. But it helps you to be really present. And when you're really fully present, your energy is in a much better place, and it enables greater self-awareness, because we miss so much when we're just constantly busy and trying to do so many things. You miss a lot. It's like, you know, if you've ever been in a workshop or something, and you know the presenter's talking and somebody else is sitting there, maybe they're on their phone or they're doing something else, you know, and then eventually they'll look up and then they'll say, well, what does that mean? What does that relate to? You know, they've missed half of it. And so now you just can't be fully present with it all. So they've missed a lot, you know, just by doing something else. So, and if you want to learn more about that, I like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which talks about how powerful just being present is, and just what you can accomplish just by doing that.
Yeah, but our world, of course, is set up that we get distracted all the time. So we have to take control. And that's what we're also talking about. No, it's like we're talking about clarity and control. And you find the way where you can control your environment and that you actually can focus and be in the now.
Right.
And
Yeah. There will always be distractions. There will always be, you know, people pulling at you and other things calling for your attention and your time. But this is where it goes right back to what you said in the beginning, what's most important to you. And when you know that, then I think it's so much easier to be able to stick with what is important and say no to the things that would pull you away from that. Or at least let them wait, you know, not everything, you can't do everything now. You know, you can only do one thing at a time effectively now. So a lot there to do with prioritizing. But again, it comes down to self-awareness, self-knowledge, that clarity, and knowing yourself, you know, knowing what's important to you and knowing your energy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, wonderful. Beautiful conversation. Of course, we could talk for hours. There's so much to be said, but I think what we leave everybody with is just try it out. Try to do. You focus on one thing and see where it goes. And
if you're having any difficulty, particularly thinking you're overwhelmed, you've got too much to do, then try a different way of prioritizing. Try just focusing on one thing at a time. Just give it a try. You've got nothing to lose, and let us know how you get on if you do.
Yeah, and leave your questions down below.
Questions,
comments. We'll get back to you.
Yes. Well, great. Thanks a lot, Bunny.
Well, thank you, Linda, and everybody have a nice weekend.